Hi guys, and welcome to the Unquendor Guitars workshop. My name is Daniel and this is another part in the video series where I'm building my Phoenix Rising guitar. In the last couple of episodes we worked on these two fretboards and I'm very excited because in this video I'm going to do the Phoenix Inlay. So without further ado, let's dive straight into this week's episode. So I went ahead and designed the inlay on the computer and I've printed out this sheet with 3 different sizes of the same inlay, and that's so I can determine which size to use on the actual fretboard, because in my experience, although I've designed this inlay on a mock-up of the fretboard on the computer, in real life it always seems to turn out a bit different. So what I like to do is cut them from the sheet, place them on the fretboard and see what suits best and if it's actually doable to do the smallest one. A bit close to the line. There's one. We might get interrupted during this video because I noticed there are some bricklayers at work in one of my neighbor's gardens, so it might get noisy today. Here we go. One more to go. So here are our 3 inlays, and hopefully the largest one fits, because to be honest this one will be the easiest to make. Both cutting out the tiny little pieces and doing the routing by hand, of course. So yeah, luckily for me the largest of the inlays fits the fretboard perfectly, just like I intended, and there's a nice bit of clearance between the orange binding we made in the previous episode and the outer edges of this inlay. And for anyone familiar with my channel might already know that I love to use aluminium for my inlay, so that's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to cut out all these tiny pieces and stick them to this aluminium with some super glue and then cut them out. So yeah, let me get set up and start making these tiny pieces for this inlay. I'm very excited to be actually doing some inlays again. So the next step is to cut all the individual pieces from this sheet of paper and stick them to the aluminum with some CA glue. And there's only really one way in doing this, and that's taking a brand new scalpel, piece of paper, something you can cut on, and just cut everything out. But unfortunately, I mentioned this in the previous video, I'm at that stage that I need to remove my glasses if I want to see anything up close, and I need some extra light. So yeah, here we go. And I don't have to be too precise. I can leave a bit of white. And for this one, I'm going to leave the paper inside of the wing to prevent these tiny parts from deforming when I'm gluing it on. It's something I might have made a mistake with the other wing, but we'll see. This needs to go right here. I'm going to try to do it the other way around right now. Put some glue right there and a bit here. Spread it a bit. Really moving it around and spreading the CA glue, so I'm absolutely certain everything is stuck to the aluminium as it should. Really drenched in CA glue. So I'm making sure that all the pieces are stuck to the aluminium correctly and that everything is drenched with CA glue, making the paper itself harder. And in my experience, this helps with cutting out these tiny pieces of aluminium. My neighbor started to work on his garden, so it's a good moment for us to let the glue cure fully. And then I'll be right back to start cutting these pieces from the sheet of aluminium. So guys, the glue has fully cured and it's time to cut out these tiny pieces for the inlay. And what I used to do was I would take out my jeweler saw and cut the inlay by hand. But I think these pieces being so tiny and so intricate that cutting them by hand would pose a problem, and that's not because a jeweler saw isn't accurate enough, because I think it is. It has mainly to do with keeping an even stroke, so it's skill. And another part is that there is a limit on how small or how tiny files you can get, and these are the tiniest I could find. So I made a little investment, and no, I'm not going into laser cutting, although I'm thinking about maybe purchasing a laser cutter for other jobs or a CNC route. But I've bought myself a scroll saw, and yeah, instead of CNC or laser cutting, I think using a scroll saw still counts as handmade. I'm not going to do a full unboxing review setup of this Proxen machine in this video, and I want to also mention that I'm by no means affiliated or sponsored by Proxen. I bought this machine with my own money because I think this will help me get my job done. The reason why you see me use several Proxen machines is just because I think they're big enough and accurate enough for guitar making, and they're nice and small and very good value for money to go here in my workshop. So that's why I like the Proxen machines. Now let's get this out of the box. Remove the plastic first. Make sure I don't lose my knife. And this machine is surprisingly heavy, to be honest with you guys. I didn't expect it to be this heavy when I first bought it. And it's been sitting off camera in my living room for quite some time now. Waiting for this video to be recorded. Yeah. Manual. Yep. We'll look at that later. A little bag with tools and accessories. This looks like a guard of some sort. Okay. The machine is packed very nicely in this box. And it is heavy. I didn't expect it to be this heavy, to be honest. Does it say on the box how much it weighs? Yeah, it weighs 17 kilograms, just the machine. And that's 35 pounds, 34, 35 pounds. Come on. All right, here we are. Yeah, and the reason why I like these Proxen machines, like I said, it's just the build quality. I can already tell it's a cast base, cast table, nice heavy motor. It's a fully cast iron housing, so the entire machine is made of cast iron. This is a bit of plastic, but this is just a cover. Even the arm is made of some sort of alloy, so yeah, nice heavy machine. And usually with machines, the heavier they are, the more precise they are, because there's less play in the material itself. So yeah, I'm going to set this up and figure everything out, and then I'll be right back with you guys when it's time to take a closer look at the machine and start cutting the inlays. So guys, I'm done setting up the machine, and yeah, like with my first impressions, I'm very pleased with the overall build quality. There are some rough spots hidden in the casting, but yeah, that's to be expected in this price range. But the parts and the components that do matter, like the arm and the adjustable knobs and the screws, all seems fine and yeah, of a reasonable quality. As well as could be expected. There are no rough edges on the arm, on the casting of the arm, for example. There's even a round over along all the edges, so very fine quality. The machine has 2 speeds, one low setting for steel, brass, hard plastics and such, and one for softer materials like aluminium, wood, leather, cork and such. So yeah, 2 speeds and an on and off button. And the thing I quickly realized when doing some test cuts is that this machine really benefits of having a foot switch to turn on and off the machine. So I have a switch installed that let me control the machine with my feet. And that's because I noticed while doing some test cuts that the saw blade has a tendency of grab hold of my aluminium, and then it starts flapping up and down, and especially when the pieces are getting tiny and it's hard to hold on. I quickly realized there's a benefit of being able to quickly turn off the machine. So yeah, that's my recommendation, and I think that this goes for any scroll saw, that it could benefit from having a foot switch. I know there are brands, and maybe Proxen has them as well, machines that are equipped with a foot switch. So that's one recommendation I could give you, have it operated with a foot switch. But other than that, yeah, I'm very impressed with this machine. I did some test cuts, and I think the only thing left to do is start cutting the actual inlay. Put on some magnifiers. And here we go. So I quickly realized that I really have to think about the cutting order. I have to keep these tiny pieces attached to the bigger piece of aluminium as long as possible. So that means that I'm first going to cut one outline, then use this tiny little file and clean up the edges if necessary, and then cut the piece from the bigger piece of aluminium. So This is really going to be a lot more challenging than I anticipated, but we'll see. Here we go. Yeah, it really is a time saver, and yeah, if you take it slow, there's almost no cleanup necessary. And I can't recall if I mentioned it, but I'm running the machine at the low speed at the moment, so just to practice and hopefully give me a bit more control. Yep. Right, here we go, another small piece into the jar. Okay guys, there is a benefit, a clear benefit that I've learned to do this by hand, because these very tight corners, the technique is exactly the same on where to cut, where to remove material in order to make very tight turns with the blade. Only this time it's much easier, and having the foot switch really helps to accomplish those tiny detailed cuts. So guys, I have to be honest with you. While I was cutting out these tiny pieces for the inlay on the new scroll saw, I quickly realized that my design might have been a bit too ambitious. Especially the tiny details, the feathers on the head of the Phoenix are so incredibly small that I think it's very difficult to cut them out. And if I even manage to cut them out by hand or using the scroll saw, I also have to do an inlay, and I think doing an inlay by hand this small, I don't think I have router bits this tiny, so I think doing an inlay with this design is also near impossible. So what I did while I was transferring the files from the memory card onto the computer and had to charge the microphone batteries, I redesigned the inlay to some extent. What I did, I removed some of the tiny details and made the overall design, especially for the head, a bit more beefy, a bit more sturdy, and I think now it's very doable. And as a bonus, now I think the design of the head matches the rest of the designs, especially for the wings, a bit better. So yeah, what I'm going to do now is start cutting the pieces of the new design. Bit more light. Where's my magnifier? And start cutting the tiny new pieces. Yeah, I think I can start right here. I'm now nearing a very tricky part, cutting the beak from the wing. very scary stuff, but here is the little wing. First piece cut, and now I'm going to cut out the rest, and I'll be back with you guys once everything is cut out. So, all the pieces for the inlays have been cut, and I did 2 inlays, so I have a whole bunch of inlay parts in this jar, and although the Proxen left a fairly decent finish on the edges, I still have some cleaning up to do with my tiny files and some sandpaper. And because I have 2 inlays to do, this will take me some time. So yeah, I'm going to clean my desk, get rid of the Proxen scroll saw, and start refining the inlay pieces. To keep track of all those little pieces and not lose anything, I'm going to put them in this little jar while I take them out one by one to clean up the edges. So let's put away the scroll saw for now, and that's a downside of getting a new machine or new equipment, is of course storage. Where am I going to put this new machine? And I think I found a spot to put it. I made some space in the cabinets over here. I moved some stock sandpaper, and hopefully I can fit the new machine. It can go straight into this little cabinet. It fits perfect. And put back these sanding drums. Like so. Put these back. Oh. And it's stored nicely. And cleaning up all the edges is pretty straightforward, but very time consuming. I'm going to take a little diamond file, and I have a selection of different diamond files. Strips of various grades of sandpaper and various sizes of dowels I can wrap sandpaper around to help me sand these little curves. And luckily, like I mentioned earlier, the new scroll saw didn't leave too harsh of cutting marks or too coarse of an edge. So it's just luckily a bit of touching up I have to do on all these edges, so I get a nice and smooth inlay and don't have any, how do you call it, fringed edges or a rough edge. So yeah, it's just a matter of very carefully sanding and filing down all the marks left by the saw blade. And actually this one might be one of the best I've cut, because there's hardly any marks visible. And for anyone familiar with my channel might know, I used to use strips of sandpaper in my jeweler saw to clean up the inside edges. But since then I started using this brand of sandpaper. It's Proline Gold. I don't know where to get it. I get it at a local shop, but it's almost cardboard like, and this really helps me to sand down edges, because I can get it straight in there and it's stiff enough that I can make a sanding motion. So yeah, that's what I'm using. It's just time consuming. If you want to do this correctly, it's not difficult, it just takes time. So on to the last piece, and I've already did a lot of sanding and cleaning up the edges for the inlay pieces off camera and also on camera during a live stream, an impromptu live stream in which I sanded a lot of these pieces, and while I was doing boring stuff I had a chat with anyone who attended the live stream. So it was kind of relaxing, having a chat, answering questions, talking about different topics. So yeah, if you haven't seen the live chat, if you couldn't join, it's ready to be rewatched on my channel. So I'll make sure to put a link somewhere up here or in the video description down below for if you have a moment of time to watch a couple of hours of me sanding and chatting along. That's also something I tend to do more as soon as I have boring stuff to do, or maybe interesting stuff, but the stuff that takes a while, I'll do those on a live stream. And the day before that we did a regular live stream, a live chat from the workshop, and that's basically just a live Q&A, and I intend to do those also more often, but those are planned, and I will post an announcement on the channel once I have planned a new live stream for you guys to join and ask me questions and have a chat about all things guitar building, and personal questions from me, and any of most other topics are welcome to be discussed during the live from the workshop chat. And I might even do some other projects during that stream as well, just to have something to do and for you guys to have something to look at. I'm going to continue cleaning up this final piece of the inlays, and then I'll be right back. So the last piece is done, and now it's time for the next step. But first, of course, as always, I have to clean up the mess on my bench. For the next stage of the inlay, I want to do a very tiny orange border around the aluminium inlay pieces, and my initial thought was to lay the aluminium pieces into some stained flamed maple, but as we all know, staining the maple all the way through didn't work out, and I really need something that's orange all the way through because I'm going to glue and sand it, and it has to stay orange. So unfortunately I can't use the flamed maple. And I thought, well, what would be another material I could use for an inlay that's also orange and not too thick and I can work on with hand tools. And I thought of acrylic, and had one of my friends provide me with some samples of orange acrylic, 3mm thick, so perfect for doing inlays. And although I'm usually not a fan of using plastics on my guitar build, I thought, well, it's only a 1mm edge around the aluminum for the inlay, so yeah, let's give it a try. And yeah, I think if you ever need some bold colors for your inlays, acrylic might be a good material to use. You can cut it very well, you can sand it very well, file it, you can route it very well. So I think maybe acrylic might be a good inlay material if you're looking for bold colors. But what I needed to do, I needed to inlay the aluminium pieces into the acrylic, and unfortunately that didn't go according to plan as well. You can see I've been practicing, I have other practice pieces as well. I've been practicing for hours, but yeah, I can't get to the required precision for the idea that I have, because unlike doing a inlay into wood, I can't fill the gaps, and gaps between your inlay material and in the cavity are almost unavoidable. And with wood, that's not a problem. You take some wood dust, you take some super glue, you fill the gaps, you sand it flush, and your gaps are almost invisible. I don't have that solution here because I can't find dust to the exact shade of orange my acrylic is, and I'm not sure how super glue and acrylic and filling gaps, how they're going to work out. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to create a cavity that was very tight fitting my aluminum pieces, but no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't get to that accuracy. And I've even tried using CNC bits, 1/2 millimeter diameter CNC bits that fit my Dremel, but yeah, by hand you're exceeding forces sometimes, making the bits snap almost instantly, and even sometimes even setting the depth by touching the bit, it snapped. So it was a very costly practice session, so to say. So what I'm going to do next, I'm going to go online and order another solution I've thought up. So here we go, and I've asked for express delivery, so I expect the package to arrive very soon. Ah, here it is already. I've ordered some epoxy glue with a variety of orange pigments and tried to color the epoxy to the color of orange I need, and then we're going to try and cast our inlay into some orange epoxy. So let's do a quick unboxing and let's see what's inside the box. Of course I already know because I've ordered it. Packing slip, of course. I've custom ordered some pigment, some coloring agent in the correct color of orange I use for Unquendor guitars. So I could custom order a dye for the epoxy. And I've also ordered some other pigment, some other use of orange, just to see what looks better. And a powder, a metallic powder pigment, also to be used on the epoxy resin. I've also ordered some pouring resin and some slow setting epoxy glue. I saw a comment in the comment section down below, and I already knew it. I had to use some slow setting epoxy glue to glue the binding to the Obsidian Ebony fretboard. So while I was ordering epoxy anyway, I saw they also sold, as one of the few suppliers here in the Netherlands, to be honest, they sold a slow setting epoxy glue. So I ordered that from them as well, to don't run into any more troubles I had in the previous episode when using epoxy. But yeah, I have to give them a call, because unfortunately the resin and the glue isn't inside this package. A bummer. Hi guys. So I made a little mistake when I was done cutting all the inlay pieces and cleaning everything up. I did a layout on the actual fretboard and I realized I designed the current inlay too big. It's slightly larger than the original inlay, and you can see it right here on the computer. This is the new version, this is the old version, and when I'm going to overlap them, and first I'm going to lower the opacity so it shows up a bit more. This is the old inlay, overlap it onto the new inlay, and you can see it's slightly wider, just a couple of millimeters wider. But now the new inlay interferes with the orange striping, so I have to make it slightly smaller and recut and do everything over. And yeah, I'm going for quality and not for speed on this build. So in the design software I already made the current inlay slightly smaller. As you can see, it now overlaps the old inlay perfectly. I have to copy this one a few times and do everything once again, unfortunately. So here we go, a new sheet that I can print. Cut out all the pieces twice and clean everything up. So this will set me back a couple of days. Yeah, I'm pretty bummed about having to redo all the work we did in this episode. And yeah, this guitar build isn't called Phoenix Rising for nothing. It was all about experimenting, doing things for the first time, making mistakes and dealing with those mistakes and handling my emotions in a healthy way. And yeah, I could have easily swept this episode under the rug and pretended nothing has ever happened and kept trying to do the perfect inlay and only showing you the ones that succeeded in an episode. But I think it's very important for everyone to understand that whenever you're trying new things, learning new skills, of pursuing a new interest, especially in the creative world, you're bound to make mistakes, and it's all about how you deal with those mistakes and how you handle your emotions in a healthy way. And I've been pretty sad the last couple of days after finding out I made a mistake with the inlay size, but I pulled myself together the best I can and decided to just put the old inlays aside and start making a new one. So yeah, we just saw me doing a redesign on the computer, and now while we wait for the epoxy resin to get in and the epoxy glue to arrive, I'm going to recut all the parts for the inlay, clean them up, and I'll have them ready for next episode, in which we hopefully get to inlay those two phoenixes into the fretboard. So I hope this episode was of some value to you and you got some useful information from it. And if you did, yeah, let me know by leaving a like, leaving a comment or a suggestion in the comment section down below. This allows me to know what you guys are thinking about making mistakes, but it also helps other people to find my channel and find my content, and in the long run it helps me to grow my channel and provide these videos for you all. If you like to support me more direct, you can do so by looking at getting yourself a nice t-shirt or a sweater or a coffee cup from the Unquendor merchandise store underneath this video. And yeah, like I said, I hope to see you all in the next episode. But until then, as always, take care and bye bye.